Good evening and namaskar. Welcome to the India podcast on Bharatvarsha and its stories. Chapter 3: The Residue of Christianism. The British rule in India crystallized two residues, Christianism and Macaullism. Certain strains of Macaullism developed what is euphemistically described as a revolutionary temper in the later stages of the British rule and joined hands with the communism after the Bolshevik victory in Russia. The whole of communism, which is also hostile to Hindu society and culture, is not Macaullism. Yet, if Macaullism has not prepared the ideological ground, communism could not have made the strides in this country. We shall analyze Christianism first. It was the first to make itself felt forcefully at the outset or on the onset of the British rule in India. We, however, wish to make it clear at the very onset that Christianism in India does not refer to the Christians in this country. They are our own people who at a certain stage of our history went over to a foreign faith in an atmosphere created and exploited by Christianism. But although they have renounced their ancestral faith, they have by and large not shown any marked hostility towards Hindu society and culture. Nor have they so far served as vehicle of Christianism except in certain areas of Northeast, notably Meghalaya, Mizoram and Nagaland. Christianism in India is centered in the numerous Christian missionaries operating all over the country, particularly in the so-called tribal belt. The 8 fundamentals of Christianism in India may be summarized as follows. Listen patiently. 1. That Hindus have never had a savior whose historicity can be ascertained, with the possible exception of Buddha. 2. That Jesus Christ, whose historicity cannot be questioned, has superseded all earlier saviors of Hinduism. If they were saviors at all and not disciples of Lucifer, and rendered superfluous all subsequent Hindu saints and sages. 3. That Saint Thomas, an apostle of Jesus himself, was specifically chosen by the Church to win India for his master's message. 4. That Saint Thomas could not complete his mission in India because he met an untimely martyrdom at the hands of some Hindu, most probably Brahmin heathens. 5. That the converts made by Saint Thomas, the first century Christians of the South, established beyond doubt that Christianity is an ancient Indian religion and not a Western import as alleged by the Hindus. 6th, that it is the sacred task of Christian Church to complete the mission of Saint Thomas and see it to that Indians become a Christian country once and for all. 7th, that if there is anything good and wholesome in Hindu religion, it is not because Hindu saints and sages ever made any direct or conscious contact with the truth, but because they merely stumbled upon some of it in the working of universal nature which was preparing itself over a long time by the advent of Jesus Christ. 8th, that no Hindu, even if he follows the 10 commandments in letter and spirit and lives by the Sermon on the Mount, can ever hope to escape eternal hellfire unless he has been baptized in a Christian church and administered the Christian sacraments. These tenets have their source in Christian religion, which also, like Islam, is an extremely exclusive religion. Christianity too claims for itself a monopoly of truth. And virtue swears by only one true God, our only true Savior or only Son of the only true God, the only true revelation, the only true way of worship, and so on. It has to its credit, a long and unrivaled record of wanton destruction of ancient religions and culture and a large-scale killing of heathens. The annals of Europe, Asia Minor, North Africa and America, particularly Central and South America, provided harrowing details of the destruction and bloodshed. We in this country do not associate Christianity with misdeeds similar to those of Islam, because British invaders who finally succeeded in capturing power in India did not allow the Christian crusaders to use state power. directly or in an inhibited manner. They had perhaps become wiser by reading of Muslim history in India and did not allow their religion to interfere with the business of building a stable empire. A more tenable explanation of this British refusal to patronize Christianity among the point of no return is the Renaissance in Europe, which had considerably decredited this creed in its own homeland by the time British arms were triumphant in India. But we did have a taste of the intrinsic spirit of Christian aggression in our first encounter with the missionaries who swarmed towards our shores in the wake of Western victories from 16th century onwards. When the Portuguese seized Goa and adjoining territories, the Catholic Church lost no time in setting up an inquisition for the benefit of native Francis Xavier, whom the Catholic Church hails as the patron saint of the East, expressed a deep satisfaction at the sight of 6,000 dead Muslims whom the Portuguese have slaughtered. He made no forcible conversions, demolished Hindu temples, smashed Hindu idols, and inaugurated that anti-Brahmanism which has by now become the sine qua non of all progressive thought and politics in India. The triumphal march of British arms in India in the second half of the 18th century convinced the Christian missionaries that British victories were not due not to superiority in the art of warfare, but to the superiority of the Christian creed by which British generals and soldiers swore. They immediately started pouring venom on Hindu religion, culture, and society. No lie was vile enough for the service of Christian truth. No fraud was foul enough in the service of the Christian virtue. An example will serve to illustrate the spiteful spirit of the Christian missionaries at that time. They spread a canard or rumour in India and abroad that many Hindu voluntarily rushed under the veils of the great chariot during the annual Rath Yatra at Puri and got themselves crushed to death in order to attain salvation. The great chariot, according to them, as always accompanied by droves of dancing girls who sang lascivious song and made obscene gestures towards crowd on both sides on the broad street. The great William Wilberforce, who ruled the circle of Christian crusaders in Britain and also who adamantly advocated Christianization of India by an unstinted use of state power, demanded immediately that temples of Jagannath be demolished to stop that devil dance for good. The British Commissioner of Puri at that time saved the situation, writing a long letter to the Liberal British MP in which he stated that he, along with many other British civilians in the district, had been a regular visitor of the Rath Yatra for 20 years, but had never witnessed a single victim under the wheels nor found anything immodest in the songs and symbolic gestures of the dancing girls. The English word juggernaut, which according to the Chambers 20th century dictionary means any relentless destroying force, is a living witness to the inventive imagination of the early Christian missionaries. This campaign of calumny against every Hindu continued till late 19th century. Swami Vivekananda was referring to this crude campaign when he cried with anguish in the Parliament of Religions at Chicago that if we Hindus dig out all the dirt from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean and throw it in your faces, it will be but a speck compared to what your missionaries have done to the religion and culture. Had not the Hindus come out in defense of this religion and culture, this missionaries' mischief would have multiplied by leaps and bounds. The Brahmo Samaj and the Arya Samaj were the earliest expression of this Hindu spirit of resistance. A notable contribution was made by Theosophical Society, whose founder, Madame Blavatsky, exposed the spiritual and moral claims of Christianity, and whose chief apostle in India, Mrs. Annie Besant, inspired no small pride in the Hindu heritage. The Ramakrishna mission also came to the rescue at a later stage. Mahatma Gandhi gave no quarters to Christian theology or to Jesus Christ as the only Son of God and Savior of mankind. He had his own charming method of recommending sermons on the Mount while showing compassion for the victims of missionaries who he described as rice Christians. Perhaps the main reason for weakening of the malicious and mendacious campaign was collapse of Christianity in its own homeland. The West had taken a decisive turn towards the scientific spirit. Meanwhile, the message of Hindu spirituality has also spread to the centers of learning in West. The exponents of Hindu religion and the culture like Ramakrishna Paramhans, Swami Vivekanand, Sri Aurobindo, Raman Maharishi, Rabindranath Tagore, Anand Kumaraswamy, and Mahatma Gandhi were demonstrating by their words and deeds that the profound promise which Hindu Dharma held for mankind, these missionaries had to change their methods. The core of Christianism in India, however, remains intact. They now know the fortress of Hindu society cannot be seized by frontal assaults. They are therefore busy in the backyards and have hidden themselves behind the smoke screen of several theologies. Some of the covert methods are listed follows. 1. Training of more and more native missionaries in the far-flung, well-equipped and fabulously financed seminaries so that the missionaries' work look no more like an undertaking mannered mostly by foreigners. Second, Hinduizing the outer accoutrement of Christian priest, liturgy and sacraments in order to convince the Hindus that Christianity is not only an imported creed and that Christianism is not out to corrode Hindu culture. I'll take a moment's pause here. If you have been vigilant of what's going in India today, you'll also see how missionaries to the same line are aligning themselves to everything that they say and hate. They dress like a Hindu saint. They talk like a Hindu saint. They practice magic, which they were allergic to, like a Hindu saint. Coming back to the book, point 3. Directing their powerful press and publishing houses not to attack Hindu religions and culture openly, but to develop a scholarly and comparative critique of Hindu religion, culture, and society, always to eliminate disadvantage of the latter. To establish and extend educational institutions which can eliminate, immunize upper-class Hindu children and youth against whatever Hindu ways still survive in their homes, wherever they do not succeed in attracting them towards Christianity. Fifth, to build and expand hospitals and undertake other social works in order to attract all-round respect for the Christian spirit of social service and neutralize as narrow bigotry any questioning of their missionary motives. Sixth, to open orphanages and homes for the handicapped where polysterization can proceed safely and unnoticed. To concentrate on Hindu tribals who are removed from the main centers of Hindu population so that there is no untoward publicity. To take out promising candidates for conversion as prolonged tours to Western countries in order to impress upon them the wonders worked by the Christian culture and civilization. Ninth, to encourage well-to-do and willing Christians in the West to adopt boys and girls of poor Indian families, send them to missionaries in schools and colleges and provide them with a monetary assistance. They then get converted. 10th, to finance and promote political campaign for separate states inside or outside the Union of India in those areas where Christian population has attained majority or in dominance. There are plenty of methods which the missionaries employ to harangue you and or hoodwink the unsuspecting Hindus. Some of these methods are petty crude, especially those employed by the American missionaries who aim to be loud and simplistically promise, "You also can be saved," or sweet scolding, "Don't you want to save yourself?" through big advertisements in daily newspapers, regular radio broadcasts, and door-to-door peddlers of salvation. The other methods are sophisticated and distinguished or disguised as Indian theology. But what looms large by the back of all these methods is the mammoth finance that flows in freely from the coffers of Christian churches and communities in Europe and America. An idea of the magnitude of this finance can be got from the recent incident which was widely reported in the daily press. An imaginative and enterprising but poor South Indian palmed off a Christian missionary a lot of faked literary and archaeological evidence about the adventures of St. Thomas in South India against a cash payment of 15 lakh rupees, a paltry sum to the total budget of the mission concerned, and there are hundreds of such missions in India. A statesman dated 17th August 1981 has published interesting news items from Assassin in Germany. The Nobel Prize winner Mother Teresa had asked her supporters to suspend charity donations, reports UNIDPA. The German section of the International Association of Friends of Mother Teresa, which donated 6 million marks in 1980, is to be disbanded at the end of the year in response to the plea. Mother Teresa, who won the prize in 1979 after years of work aiding the poorest of the poor, called the temporary halt to the contributions until we have used up what we have. I will then ask you again, the founder of Missionaries of Charity said in a circular. Excessive support of a singular charity leading to needs of thousands of others being forgotten was probably behind the request. Emphasis added. 6 million West German marks amount to approximately 2.5 crores of rupees. The amount contributed at the section of International Association of Friends of Mother Teresa are most likely to total up many times this sum. Mother Teresa is not in a position to use all the money that has already been given to her, so the torrent had been halted temporarily. It will start pouring again as soon as the signal is given. And hers is only one of the thousands of other charities. One can well imagine the staggering finance at the disposal of Christianism in India. The free flow of Western wealth enables the missionaries to live in and have at their disposal palatial mansions in which their missions and seminaries are housed. Their vow of poverty never comes in the way of having modern sanitation facilities, kitchen, communication and transport. They can travel not only over the length and breadth of this country, but at the ends of the earth to attend conferences, congregations, seminars and symposia. Have you ever thought where the money comes from? Every day they can stay in similar sumptuous style. It is but human if the superiority of their style is living gets confused with the superiority of the Christian creed. Recently, some missionaries, particularly in the Catholic missions, have started talking a new language, the language of radicalism and revolution. It is not unoften that this language comes most easily in those who do not have to share the woes and wants of people with whom they commiserate. They make the best of both worlds. Our communist leaders are an excellent example of some synthetic radicalism. The West had lost its fascination for the faith. It is becoming increasingly difficult to find men and women in the West who would take their holy orders and become wedded to vow of chastity, poverty and obedience. But the West does not mind parting their plenty of cash, which is prosperity can spare with ease. Christianity is therefore making a bold bid to establish a safer heaven in East while going is good. India provides a particular soft target. Christian missions are welcome to open their purse strings in the Islamic and communist countries of Asia. But the missions there are barred from winning new converts. Hindu India, drowned in poverty and suffering from the cultural self-forgetfulness, is the only country in Asia which provides quid pro quo. We come to the end of chapter 3. Stay tuned.